welcome to Developing Graphic Stories. I'm Gina Gagliano from Random House Graphic, and I'm excited to moderate this panel that's all about the graphic novel creative process. So we have an amazing set of panelists here who are all excitedly familiar with the system. So, Hartley, do you want to start us off and introduce yourself and tell us a little about who you are and your graphic storytelling work?
Sure, yeah. I'm Hartley Lin. I do a ongoing comic book called Opats, and my first collection from that is called Young Francis. It's, I guess, what you would call my first graphic novel. I'm from Montreal, and I've been doing comics for 10 years.
My name is Tillie Walden. I'm a cartoonist from Austin, Texas, but I don't live there anymore because Texas. And I'm the creator of the graphic memoir Spinning, which is about my 12 years as a competitive figure skater and trying to be a competitive figure skater while also being a lesbian, while also being a teenager, and it just not working out. And then after that, I made a webcomic called On a Sunbeam, which is kind of just sad and queer, only in space. And yeah, so those are my two biggest books, and I have a couple other small books, and I'm a graduate of the Center for Cartoon Studies.
My name is Vera Brosgol. I'm an author-illustrator in Portland, Oregon. I have an animation background, but I currently do books full-time. I alternate picture books and graphic novels, but I make comics for kids. My first graphic novel was On His Ghost. Then I did a picture book called Leave Me Alone, and my latest book is a middle grade memoir called Be Prepared, about a horrible summer camp I went to when I was 9.
My name is Tony Cliff. I'm visiting you from beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia. I have a background in animation as well, in traditional animation. And I designed a series of graphic novels called Delilah Dirk to fill the Indiana Jones-shaped hole in my own heart.
Okay, so we're going to dive in and start talking about the storytelling process, starting from ideas. So how do you all get ideas? And how do you all, once you've gotten ideas, determine that they're good ideas that are going to make a whole graphic novel?
Who likes this question?
No, I don't think any creator ever in the world likes this question.
Next question.
No, wait, we can handle it. We can handle it. Come on, let's be strong, everyone. I don't know, but when I have an idea, I guess I don't jump in and immediately judge it. Like, I sort of save the judgment for later when I'm sort of pitching it and developing it. But when I first have an idea, it's just sort of like a spark, and it's just fun and interesting. And it can be anything. And graphic novels take so long that I always try and pick topics that, like, am I okay drawing this over and over and over and over again? You know, so I'm not going to pick something I don't like drawing. And I'm not going to pick a topic that's boring to me.
Yeah, same. I check for that excitement to draw it again, over and over again. If it falls within my limited range of skills, I'm really good at organic environments, not so much cars, so you'll notice I've never set a story in Manhattan. This is how it happened. Even though I have ideas that would be great for that. But yeah, the excitement is the main thing, and I kind of give it a minute and see if I'm still excited a few minutes later. And also check to see if anyone else has done something similar, because that'll just drain.
Really? Do you worry about that?
If there's something that's too close, it will sort of knock down the excitement.
But your book won't come out for another 3 years.
I know, but still, I like to do things that at least I think are original. That makes me more excited.
Gina, there was an element of your question that was, like, how do you decide an idea is suitable for a graphic novel? I come at it sort of from the other end, where graphic novel felt like the only way to make a thing, because it was the kind of object I wanted to see out there, because all of my favorite stuff was like Hellboy trade paperbacks and big thick Bill Watterson books, the Calvin Hobbes books, so it just felt like, a graphic novel is a very nice way for one person individually to put forward like a richly illustrated visual story without, the team aspect of working on an animated feature or something, or without having to assemble a cast and directors for a feature film, and it's got more pictures than a novel. So, I don't know. I always came at that.
I've only done one graphic novel, and I like to give myself a lot of freedom to not do that because I'm a big fan of like short fiction, kind of like short stories, The New Yorker, and just the format of that. So the equivalent in comics would be short stories that that you might publish in anthology or your one-man anthology, which I have. So because of that, I've just given myself flexibility to just do whatever I want to do. And with the awareness that if there is an idea that's going to be a graphic novel, I have to be really, really confident that it's going to sustain my interest for 5, 6, 7 years. And so I'm actually currently in this swamp of like figuring out this one story, whether it's good enough, like to
I was going to say the hard part about working on a project for that long is that halfway through you will come up with a better idea.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's certain.
And not only that, you kind of have to create, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but you kind of have to create your own style guide for the book so that page like 78 is going to be still consistent with page 3. And so when you do that, like you have to be just happy with the way you're working. And I find that cumbersome sometimes.
I always redo page 3. Like the
Do you go back?
The first 3 pages get redrawn and kind of done.
I sort of love the inconsistency. I like that like when you read it, you're learning along with me.
Yeah, it becomes like in like a document in its own
Yeah.
making. Like
Also, who has time to redraw? I don't have time for that.
I feel
So while we're talking about this art process, can you all talk a little about your artistic process? Like how do you figure out what type of art is right for the book, and then how do you make it? Tillie, I have some slides for you here.
We all submitted slides.
Is that? Oh, I know. What's the next slide? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I did send this. What's the next slide? Oh, that's the finish. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so if you look like at the first one, that was my idea for that page, and everything really happens for me when I'm inking. The pencils are just like a concept really, and then I change things and I just sort of have fun with the inks, which I think drives everyone crazy because my editor will like see a pencil version of my book and be like, great, and then I'll send her the final book and she's like, what is this? This is not what we talked about. Because I like, my process is very much about improvisation. I change the dialogue, I write dialogue while I'm inking, I change panels, I change layouts. It's the only way to keep it interesting and fun for me, and I like to feel like halfway through a book, if I have a really great idea or a different direction I want to take it, I'll do it. So yeah, that's kind of my process.
I improvise as little as possible.
Really? Oh, there's here.
Here's some research.
You research?
Well, so I could actually go to the place where it was set. Did you go to like an ice rink?
No way, too scary.
Yeah. A little scary.
Did you go back to the
I
camp?
went back to the camp and I wasn't really supposed to be there because I didn't have a child in the camp.
Who is this woman?
I flew across the country for like an open house day. I thought it was an alumni event, but it wasn't. It was parents visiting their children. But because I'm a white lady with glasses, I can go anywhere. So I just waltzed in there and took photos and did sketches. That was a letter that my brother wrote to my mom that she kept. Sign this. Oh yeah. So this is the first book that I wrote a script for because my first book, Anya's Ghost, I went straight to thumbnails, which is very hard to edit. Because thumbnails take a lot longer. So I wrote the script this time. Next one, Gina, thank you. This is a thumbnail. This all makes sense to me.
Did you like scripting?
I hate it so much, but it really helps. Just revision-wise and time-wise. And working in animation, I got kind of used to reading them, so I knew what they were supposed to look like. This is a thumbnail. This is the rough pencil. Then I do a tighter pencil. Then I ink. Oh, this is my inking crap.
Oh, I love that white pen. I have the same
Yeah,
one.
it's a good one. It's all stick now. This is me inking. That's the ink page. That's the color. So you have very little changes because I like to kind of turn my brain off when I'm doing the drawing. That's the treat.
Yeah.
All the decisions get made in the thumbnail and the scripting stage. which is why, coincidentally, it's my least favorite stage. And the stage I'm in right now, which is why I'm here in Boston, unfortunately.
I feel the same stage where you let your mind.
Can you speak up, please?
Oh.
Thank you.
I feel the same way about the inking stage where you let your mind go free because you've already scripted everything. But I'm curious, what do you think about when you ink?
When I ink,
Do you listen to public radio? Like, what do you do?
I put on like garbage TV.
Oh, I do the same.
But I can
Right in front.
right in front on an iPad or something, or podcasts. Yeah, things that I actually have to listen to, not music. When I write in thumbnail, it's just silence. I need my entire brain. You listen to public radio yourself?
Very intelligent. No, I mean, like, I do the same. I watch trash TV, a lot of Netflix. But sometimes I find, like, I feel like I'm still thinking about, like, atmosphere and trying to make the environment real. And it's not really draining, kind of, but it does require a lot of thinking at the same time. But, so I'd like some slides on Francis and how I develop stories. So I write a script, and what I also do is I give myself like a scene list, basically, just so I can understand the structure, and I really care about flow of story, like what scenes are short and what scenes are long. So this is kind of my cheat sheet to understand like where something takes place. I think the red is a certain character, the blue is, it's like, blue is kind of like your domestic life, the black is just office. It's kind of like, it helps me get it gives me an idea of like, oh, is there something that's like really gonna not work in this story? There's too many scenes that take place and work in one section of the story. It needs to have a bit of variety. And the next slide, I don't do this often, but sometimes if there's something that I'm not used to seeing, like this is kind of like a condo set where one of the characters who lives in LA, I'll just kind of like throw together some photo references and put it together so that I can use it as a cheat sheet when I'm drawing the scene. Like I know where the sofa is, where the doorways are. Next one. Oh, this really helped me for the second half of the book. I kind of realized, so I did each chapter and then I published a chapter in my book, Opats. And that was kind of a nice way to get a bit of an audience as the story progressed. But for the second half of the story, looking back, I was like, I spend so much time when I draw a new page just figuring out what people are wearing, and I'm not fashion conscious. I'm not very smart with that stuff.
Why would you design a knit sweater so complex?
I don't know. It just seemed like what the character would wear, right?
Then you have to draw it again and again.
Well, so this helped me just like to know like what time of day a scene would take place in, and what they would be wearing at that time of day, and if they were going to a party, what kind of dress they would. And so it just I spent like maybe a couple days putting this together, and then again that was for when I drew the finals. And I think the next slide might be it's like thumbnails, and then it's really messy, but the finals actually kind of resemble them quite a lot in the end. If it's the start of a chapter, I tend to give myself a lot of notes and I actually think about it a lot more. I think the next slide is more standard page where I'm just kind of like winging it at this point. And the thumbnails really help me. I care about what's on a page, like, and what it faces, what page it faces.
Oh, like the spread?
Yeah, what happens at the first panel, what happens at the last panel of the page before you look over. And I don't know, I just kind of like to know, if I can manage it, I like the scene to start at the top of the page and end at the bottom of the page. So thumbnails help me with that kind of stuff. It's just like managing the real estate of the page.
Yeah, that makes me crazy with editing when I have to remove add a page, because
It messes up your order!
interrupt your page turns for the entire rest of the book, so you have to either cut 2 pages at once or add 2 pages.
And I always do that. Like I force myself to find a way to either cut to or add into.
Webcomics, this is not an issue, but for print, it's a big deal. Tony.
Hello. Tillie, you were mentioning improvisation. I'm thinking, oh yeah, like that would be a great strength so you're working on a thing by yourself. It's your own project.
Yeah.
You're the only one working on it. It's great. You have the opportunity to improvise. You don't get that working on a team project. That sounds like a great idea. I do not do that. I am in the same camp of wanting to retrace steps as little as possible, or wanting to leave as little to chance as possible. I write everything out in this, or at least for the last 2 projects, wrote everything out as a prose style manuscript. Just because it's something that I can give to my editor or give to trusted readers and say, are my jokes funny? Is the suspense suspenseful?
And you have a novelization all ready to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I can't believe you have to deal with like punctuation when you're not going to use it.
No, this is fantastic. This works so well for me. Because the other thing is like if I'm going to spend, a year and a half working on a graphic novel, I want to know right up front, yeah, is the jokes funny? Is the suspense suspenseful? Are the scary parts scary? That sort of thing. What's working? What's not? And I change a bunch of stuff as we go along, but it's all sort of micro changes after this point. And then you just go in with a pencil afterwards and be like, oh yeah, this one's page 1, this one's page 2, so on and so forth, that sort of thing.
What are you doing with its exciting star?
What am I doing with this? Let me tell you. Uncle suggested Dee Dee might want to track down whoever was writing these. I have no idea. I'm sorry.
Please do.
She did it.
Okay, we're gonna step through this. So the thumbnail part, that's an 11 by 17 sheet of paper. Those are all about an inch high. And at this point, I'm trying to deal with problems like, like you were talking a little bit about earlier, like how you divide up the page and the page composition. I want to surprise the reader every time they turn the page, ideally. And at the bottom right-hand corner of the right-hand page, ask the reader a question, even if it's a teeny tiny question, ask a question so that it is impossible not to turn the page. Ideally. I don't know. That's fun.
It looks like you're making a lot of notes for yourself on this.
Is there verbal abuse written in here? Because I do that a lot.
Like to,
Oh my God, I hate this.
like to yourself?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, if you need verbal abuse, Vera, I will supply it. This is a bit of a close-up. So, again, along the same lines of wanting to reduce all elements of chance and improvisation. The thumbnails get a little bit larger, and here the problems become problems of acting and composition of the balloons and everything, making sure setting up the poses, and trying to make things a little bit more interesting on a finer grain detail level. Costume designs to keep things consistent. Some people do it, some people don't. I like to do it because I want to make it as easy for the reader as possible, keep things as consistent as possible, as legible as possible. Some penciling. You guys are all inkers, right?
Like, you mean inkers in traditional inker, or like
Because you draw and then you actually put ink on the page, right? I do not want to learn how to ink. And also, technology makes it possible that I can just draw everything in pencil on a sheet of paper and scan it in, and then just color the pencil lines.
He's incredible at pulling out light pencil artwork with Photoshop. You learn some really good little shortcuts from that.
Yeah.
we need to talk.
I will reveal all of my secrets. So animation training taught us all how to draw very, very tight pencil lines. So with the first book, I tried to make the pencil lines look like ink. With this one, with the most recent one, figured, well, I'm using a pencil, so I might as well try and start to take advantage of some of the pencil-ish quality to it. So you're starting to see it a little bit more. I could probably push a little bit further, but I'm also constrained by the fact that I want it to look like it's the same, looks like it sits in the same family as the previous books. It's in color now. I use heavy photo reference. For example, the sky there is lifted straight from a photo. That sort of thing. And then this would be a development artwork, a piece of development artwork for the next book, just trying to show people, oh, this is what it might look like, this is where we might go. These are the cruel people we may or may not encounter.
You cut them from the story.
Yep, none of this stuff is in the final story.
I can't believe y'all all script and thumbnail. I don't do either.
Do you think that the way that you have a personal like production pipeline for your books, is it kind of in your DNA from animation, just like the way you would produce a show or create, I don't know, like a 5-minute movie?
So is that related to
Yeah,
animation?
like,
I don't know.
do you find that that has influenced the way you create books?
I mean, you could also ask, like, do I like animation because it breaks down everything into pieces? I mean, the strength of it is that you get to resolve specific problems at specific points instead of trying to do it all at once, which would, I feel like, overtax me personally. But I don't know. I mean, this is based solely on figuring out over a project and then the next project and the next project and the next project, and seeing what works and what doesn't.
And you're aiming towards like a page count for each book. This volume is going to be 120 pages.
The goal is always to keep the page count as reasonable as possible.
Tillie, do you have a comment on that?
Oh, wow. I feel personally attacked. I'm like, I can never deal with page counts. I just have to draw it, and however long it's going to be is how long it's going to be, and hopefully my publishers won't cry or hate me at the end of it. Whenever I'm working on a scene, especially or a part of a book where I really love it and I'm enjoying it, I like to really dig into it, like extend that moment, have lots of quiet moments, just take the time, because people read graphic novels so fast that even if it is, 600 pages, you're gonna read it super fast. It won't feel that way, and I like lingering.
I love that page in spinning where you take is it like half a page or a full page, just like putting a coat on?
Yeah. There's a page where I'm just in a hotel room and they have a spinny chair and I'm just spinning in it, and then I fall over. And then I like look in the mirror, and I just love that. I love those little moments of life.
That breathing room is really nice, and I keep trying to be like, I should try to do that, to put more breathing room into the story. Never do.
Well, someone asked me at something, I forget, where they were like, but what about, like, I want to put breathing room in my comics, but I'm worried it's going to be boring. And my answer was kind of like, it's okay. Like, it's okay to have moments that may seem boring, because even if it's boring to you, we can all relate to like I need to get out of bed, but I'm not getting out of bed,
Life is boring.
Yeah, it is.
Maybe not in an action adventure, but.
Well, but it works. It's for this. Same thing for like fight scenes. You could draw out a 10-page fight sequence, which would read for a reader in 30 seconds, maybe.
Fight scenes are hard to draw, just like all that motion.
And so, I mean, at least my personal approach to that is, if there's a fight scene, something interesting has to happen, or something has to change in the relationship between the characters, because there's no point in having them just swing swords at each other for 10 pages, if they're still in roughly the same position as they were at the beginning. So that's me. But the breathing room, I think, gives the book a nice texture.
But it's hard because it takes so long to make these pages and to make this book that sometimes it is just like, I want to have breathing room here, but I also just want this book to be over. And it's this endless fight between that.
And that's where the editors come in, I guess.
Yeah.
So let's talk about those editors. How do you all work with your editor and your publisher to make your book? How are they involved?
Lots of trust. We can say that.
Yeah, her name is Connie. She's dreamy, except I just found out she considers herself a Slytherin and is very proud of that.
Love that. It makes me love her even more.
She wants everyone to be jealous of her. She wants her legacy to be...
Connie is so dark, I love it. Because my process is so like, I don't know what I'm doing, I'm just gonna make up my book, I rely very heavily on my editor to like look at it when it's done and fix all the underlying problems. And she'll come back at me with like, cut this, switch that, like these 30 pages don't work. And if that's the case, it's like, okay, I trust her wholeheartedly. I worked on a memoir with her, and every conversation we had was basically therapy. So that's, in our relationship now, there's so much trust, and I feel like when she looks at my comics, she knows the best way to make it, make it strong. So if she tells me, like, redo this, I'm like, okay, done. I don't question it.
I work with Connie on picture books, not graphic novels. I do my graphic.
What is that like?
It's a little bit different because, I also do everything she says.
Yeah. Never turned down Connie.
Scared of her. but because it's a picture book, I can't actually draw out every little rabbit hole she sends me down, and we just look at it and see if it works or not.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time we circle back and throw everything in the garbage and stick with my first instincts. But I also work with Mark Siegel at First Second, which is also wonderful. And he's pretty hands-on, and that's kind of what I want as my books get a little bit more ambitious and complicated. And we actually he's outsourced some of the editing to this thing he refers to as the story press.
Oh, I heard about this.
Oh boy. I recommend it because comics are so lonely and you are staring at this thing for so long and you can't tell if it's good anymore. And you want a trusted beta reader as soon as possible. So it's a group of four or five other graphic novelists. Jean Yang was one of them. Shelley, who put this all together, is another one of them. Sam Bosma. And we read each other's stuff. And then all get on Skype, and then for the first half hour, you are not allowed to speak. You just have to listen to these other people discuss what you've shown them. And you're just sort of like shaking, wanting to fight back, or try to clarify. No, you're wrong. Wait, go back. Or I don't know, just or ask them a question. But you have to wait. You have to listen for half an hour, and then for the rest of the call, you can have a conversation about it. And I found that incredibly helpful.
Is this a team that Mark has assembled for everything he edits?
No,
or is
no,
it
this
just for you?
is just an experiment. The people in this group we're all with different publishers.
Sure.
I mean, a lot of it was First Second, but that's not a normal First Second editorial technique.
Yeah.
But this is something you can do if you have friends or colleagues. You can just put your own together. That's been really useful because a lot of the time the editors at First Second, they all have a lot of books.
Yeah.
A lot of books. So it's hard to get their full attention. So having that sort of extra round of editing was really, really helpful with Be Prepared.
Oh, so you did that with Be Prepared.
That was for Be Prepared, yeah. But otherwise, he's really good at having broad, sort of abstract, conceptual discussions, just like Connie does. It is a bit like therapy, for sure, which is good. I think we can more of that.
Have you made major changes to your book based on those conversations from the beta?
Usually, I won't come out of it with suggestions from the group, but people I will notice will gravitate to an area of the script where there's a problem. They'll be different. They'll all have a different solution, but it'll be like beginning of Act 3, something's not working. So I know I need to focus on that, and then I have to solve it myself. But generally, by the end of the conversation, I'm like pumped to fix it. It's never just like broken me down. It's always motivated me more. It's a resource I use when I'm stuck more than anything. Make your own.
Yeah.
Come on in. I'll talk to mine.
Yeah, I think with something like this, where there's just like one author's name on the front of a book, and with a lot of art, there's the myth of the singular genius, and you guys are welcome to that. I feel like every choice I make is a mistake. So having a good editor who can read something constructively, or even just somebody who can read and say, this isn't working for me. A lot of the time, I'm already thinking, well, this part, there's something wrong with it, but I don't know what. And just having somebody to talk about it with can help you, get you to that spot, right? Where you come out of it feeling pumped, like, oh, yeah, oh, okay, I know how to fix this. And sometimes a good conversation like that, which is what you will get from a good editor, which has been my experience for all my time working on the DB books, is like, you come away from it, and like, oh, yeah, there's that solution. Like, we both found the same problem. Now we can fix it.
I feel like some of the best edits I've gotten are never just like, do this. It's a question. Like, wait, why did this character just do that? Where did the car just disappear to? And then I am forced to like answer it. That always feels great, because then your editor is just like sort of pushing you, not solving the problem for you, because ultimately it's your story. You have to like figure out how to make it work.
I guess I have a different dynamic. I've got a publisher, which is At House Books, Chris Spitzer. It's a kind of a smaller publisher. And I guess I'm more on the indie side. I'm a really selfish artist, so I don't like any input.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I mean, like, it works two ways. It's, I like all the power of like, being able to write without any outside influence, but it's also because I'm insecure. It's like I'm friends with Chester Brown. I don't want him to see a draft of my stuff, because then his voice is going to get in my head and I won't be able to get it down. So, I also just personally like art that seems to come out of a vacuum. It seems so singular. So my relationship with Chris is, I think, a unique one in that he is very trusting, like your editors, but almost too trusting. I think 2 issues of Pope Hats, I sent it in, and I tried to have it just completely ready to print. And he,
That's the first time he sees it?
yeah,
Wow.
and no one's read it at this point, not even my wife. And he reads it, and for the 2 issues, recent issues, he sent it to the printer the next day. And I know that that's like very unique in terms of production, but I'm like a weird guy, and he's kind of a weird guy. So
But it works for you. Does it feel like it works for you?
yeah, and like collecting the story as a graphic novel, like it's in my mind where where I'm orienting the chapters, and that's just kind of crapshoot. I just hope that it works out. Maybe my next book will be a bit different and a bit more planned out strategically, but I've grown to just really enjoy the freedom of just having it, like even if it's crazy, if it comes out a little like insular, I kind of like that too.
Yeah.
Like I want to be that author. It's like, where did this come from?
It looks pretty darn planned out.
Yeah.
To me from that. Yeah, it seems like you spend a lot of time editing yourself, and probably more.
I've got a proofreader. I have a
Yeah.
friend, like not a close friend at all, but an acquaintance who just makes sure that like it makes sense, like the dialogue is like grammatically correct and all that, and the spelling. Yeah. Oh man, I would die if there was a spelling mistake in my book.
Really?
Yeah, I would like.
Oh, I kind of love it. When someone is like, I noticed an error, and I'm like, oh, where is it? Show me.
So what do you all do when you run into a problem? Like either with the ideas, with the writing, with the art, when you're like, I don't know how to deal with this thing, it's not working. Like, do you have a system for getting yourself out of it?
I've got a way out personally because I'm putting out chapters of the book through my co-pass title. And for writing the second half of my book, Young Francis, I actually wrote like 2 full scripts. I spent months on it and I just didn't like it. I threw it out. And I was like, I can't do a third right away. I'm driving myself crazy with this. And the more time you spend on a project and it's not working out, the higher your expectation level is for yourself, and it can become crippling. So what I did was I just kind of like, I was like, okay, forget it. The next issue of Popats will just be short stories, and I'll have new characters. At that point, you kind of feel like a failure if you're hard on yourself. But I did that, and it was the most creatively refreshing thing I've ever done. So I spent a year doing that, and then coming back, and like the format of the comics were different, the grids were different. It was in color. And then when I went back to write this script for the second half, I was a different person, and it worked out again. Mm-hmm. And you kind of have, I feel like if you're in it for the long haul, sometimes you just have to have faith that it'll work out in the end. Mm-hmm. And give yourself allowance to fail. That's part of the artist.
I think there's never just like one big problem in the way. There's always problems. There's always, until the book is done and like finished, there's always something that's coming up. I find color very frustrating. Like, what's the palette going to be? How is it going to work? But every problem for me is I can always break it down into littler problems, and I just think of it like a graphic novel is just sort of chipping away at something. I can never just like reach the end in one go. So I'm always just trying to get it's like inching myself forward. And so if there's a big problem, I think, okay, this whole 10-page thing isn't working. It's overwhelming to think about it. Let me just think about one of the pages. So anything I can do to just break it down is how I do it. And just just keep going. Like if I full on stop, then the problem will never get fixed. But if I keep going and keep crawling, then eventually it will.
Yeah, for me the trust has been a big issue, especially lately. The book I've just finished the first draft of, I really struggled with, and I gave myself a lot of breaks on it, which is kind of a luxury if you have a deadline and it's your full-time job.
Why did you struggle with it?
It's just a combination of things going on in my personal life and it just being a difficult subject matter, I guess. It's different from what I've done before. So I took a break and I just read a lot of things. I think the output was hard because I didn't have the input to work with. So I just read a bunch of different books tangentially related to the subject matter, and then I had all this stuff to kind of regurgitate later. But also part of it was just making myself trust that I was good at this. That was really hard. That I've been able to do this because maybe I'm not an awful writer, maybe I'm not an awful artist, and my editor will help me So remembering that and that this is a collaboration, I forced myself to send off the manuscript. I didn't think it was perfect. I don't think it's going to ever really get perfect, but it was good enough to start working on with another person. So yeah, I don't suck. It's very hard for me to say in front of an audience, but I don't suck.
Yeah, and you'll hand your book in, and then when you see the final printed thing, you're like, should have done that differently. And so it's like,
Oh, I don't reread them.
Yeah, me neither. Lord, that would be insane. Why would I look at it?
No.
oh no, it is the best feeling in the world. So this is a true story. I was cleaning up in our house, and I had an advanced copy of DD3. This was before it had come out. I picked it up. I was just gonna go move it over there, this book wasn't in places where books were supposed to be. And ended up leafing through it and ended up reading the second half of the book I had written and enjoying it. I'm like, oh,
Where's this guy? He's really good.
you know, and like that happened, and I don't know, I feel very, very lucky that they turn out that way. And when you're working on these things and you're running into a problem like that, I think the only thing I can do is to push through. And it's like, we step through all the steps up here, and I like to visualize it sort of like doing laps around the same racetrack. And every time you do a lap, the work gets a little bit tighter and a little bit tighter. And if you run into an angry pack of dogs right here, you can stop there and let them devour you. Or you can keep running and
Would
grab.
they chase you or what?
Well, maybe they chase you, maybe they stay there. But there's some sausage links on the other side of the track, and you grab those and you just feed it to them on the next way around.
I can't believe you go back and read your books.
Why not? I mean, not intentionally. Like, it's not on purpose.
I couldn't handle it. It'd be too weird.
No, but like this is so sorry. As an important bit of context, this would be a year after I had handed it in, and having that time away from it. Like handing it in, I do not want to look. I don't want to look
It's like,
at
get away from me, get away from me.
Yeah. Like it's got to be delivered. It's got to be done. I don't want to look at it at that point. But like with that space, with that time apart. It gives you that perspective, a little bit of distance.
Yeah, you need distance. I think if you read it right away, it's going to feel like bad high school poetry. But with enough years, I think you become effective. That form this self of yours, you kind of become minded of yourself, and that's nice to know. I've disowned work of mine and then gone back to it. It's actually kind of fun. It's kind of cute.
So I suspect some people in the audience here may themselves be developing graphic stories, as is our panel title. Is there any advice you have for our audience if they are undertaking this task, this quest?
Yes, start small. I learned what worked for me and what did not work for me in the process by starting off with like 20-page comics, 16-page comics, 30-page comics. And bringing taking those small projects to their finished state, what felt really valuable to me, because then it wasn't like I started penciling a 1,000-page epic and then continued struggling at that before getting finished. And the nice thing about that is you finish a small project, you're no longer an aspiring writer or an aspiring comic creator. You have written a comic, you have made a comic, you are a writer, you are a comic maker. It's done.
And it's something you can show an agent or an editor or publish as a zine. That's how I got started. I did a very ambitious webcomic that I abandoned in high school, but then I did short stories that were published in the Flight anthologies, and that's what got me my agent and my publisher. Everything kind of led from those short, finished, published things. And then by that point, I was good enough to do a full-size graphic novel. And the way I approached the bigger projects was break it down again and try to take as many steps back as possible. So one of the first things I do is put my outline on Post-it notes on a wall, just like the main points of that scene, vertically in front of me on like a removable format, and move them around, figure out the ones that are redundant, a little bit like what you do with that really beautiful color-coded thing, but ugly on Post-it notes. Just see what function each scene is serving and make sure they all deserve to be there. It's going to take a while to draw. They all need to deserve to be there.
Yeah, that's great advice, starting small. I teach comics, and often I meet students who get really stuck in that beginning part of just thinking about their project and planning it and wanting it to be the greatest thing in the world. And for all of them, I say, like, stop thinking and start making something. It's much easier to edit and work on something when you actually have something. You cannot edit your mind. So start.
May I also, along those lines, does anybody know, is National Novel Writing Month this month or next month?
It's next month. It's November. NaNoWriMo.
So if you haven't done this, and if you don't want to write a novel or anything, that's fine. There is a muscle. There's a muscle that you can build in yourself, which is the ability to keep making and continue and push forward on a project without thinking critically about it. And that is what National Novel Writing Month does. It challenges you to write a 50,000 word novel in 1 month. The secret is it will be awful. Mine was. But I came out at the end of that month feeling much more comfortable with like the thing we were talking about earlier, with running into a stumbling block on a creative project. You just gotta push through and keep going, because like you said, you can't edit your thoughts, but once you've got it on paper, that's something you can work with.
I actually did NaNoWriMo. My school had us do it, my middle school, so I did it for 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, and I realize now that so much of my ability to just kind of power through a project, it's completely because of that. I learned that skill. Please do it, it's great.
So it starts in November. There's a lot of support. There's a website you can sign up for it. I'm not associated with it at all.
Are they paying you?
I can only recommend it as a wholly worthwhile exercise.
I just have one quick thing to add. For the younger artists, it must seem really luxurious to be in our place where we have a certain confidence that our projects will be published, and we have some space and time to work on it. We've definitely all probably been in situations where we've been in some job where we feel like it's taking us away from our ultimate goal of being an artist, and so I have a lot of sympathy for that. What I would say for the younger artists is to be patient and to know that your first major project hopefully won't be your last. And so if it takes longer than you think it should, that's okay. And also, so one thing is to be patient, the other thing is to not feel like you need to make dramatic sacrifices to declare how serious you are about your craft. That'll happen on its own, and it's a quiet, slow process. You don't have to break up with your significant other or like quit your job and have some sort of breakdown. You can if you want. That's fine. If you want to do like automatic comics, that would be interesting comics. But it'll work out. Just have some faith.
Yeah, exactly the opposite. I feel like a lot of the best stuff comes from having, say, a reliable job and a stable home, like as much to as much of a degree as possible, which is a recommendation. If anybody is not familiar with Austin Kleon's work, he writes a lot. He writes a lot about creativity and the creative process in a very succinct way, in a very relatable way. I recommend his work. It's Austin, like the city, Kleon, K-L-E-O-N. It's lovely.
Awesome. So now we have some time for audience questions, if people have questions.
So I'm currently very stuck on the script writing process, and I want to start writing the script and then doing something else. So I'm very stuck on like how to structure the script, like what notes should be put in, things like that, like formats that you guys use for script writing.
So your question was about formats or methods for approaching script writing and that sort of thing. It depends. Are you working with somebody else or are you just by yourself?
It's me, but I have a team that I'm going to be reading my script.
Okay, so you will be showing it to other people. So if you were only looking at it yourself, then I personally would say just do whatever works. And just try one thing on this project, because there will be, like you were saying, there will be another project to improve upon. But if you're working for other people, talk to them about what they would like to see. I think there are a bunch of standard formats you can follow, but if it's not a formal industry job, I don't know. Just talk about experiment. Find out what works best for you. Just try one thing, and if it doesn't work, just try another. It'll take a little bit longer, but if you're just starting out, then that's okay.
I approach everything like a movie because that's kind of what I work on so much. So I think a lot about, my stories are structured very traditionally, kind of not strictly just journey, but that sort of thing. So that's a good thing to familiarize yourself with, just like this basic archetypal story structure. You can definitely deviate from it, but it's a nice thing to know about. Dan Harmon has good stuff on his website about breaking stories for television as well. But that's only if you want to do kind of like a movie style story. Depends on what your idea is.
Yeah, read a lot of script writing, screenwriting, story writing books. Read like a bunch of them, a bunch of different ones, because you'll get a lot of different different opinions. Like there's one that comes very highly recommended that I hate.
Oh, you have to tell us what it is.
Oh.
But no one will tell, right?
It's one from which I pulled, at least one like really, really useful nugget. And meanwhile, there's another book I read, and I'm like, oh, I relate to this so hard, and this really suits my personality. But there's something useful to be pulled from every one of them. And the more useful thing is comparing and contrasting their different approaches. Like someone will say, you absolutely need this set structure. And another person will say, you need no structure at all. And again, navigating your way through that is part of the process that your readers won't necessarily see, but which will inform the work.
You in the pink.
So my question's about publishing. I know a couple of you have mentioned that sometimes without confidence maybe with your work you feel like it's all terrible. So like what kind of advice would you give to someone that has work that they would like to be published, hasn't sent it out yet, hasn't been approached by anyone, so like get that first step? Like I think someone also mentioned that they were approached by someone. So just like, did you go indie publishing, online publishing, or what?
I say online, why not?
Yeah. It's, just spreading your comics around and having more eyes on them is good, but then you do have to deal with the whole confidence thing. You have to be okay with like your comic being out there. I started in the small press and then worked up to big publishers, but they found me online. If I had a website, I had some social media promoting it, and I kept it very professional, did not mention how old I was, and that was how they found me.
Yep, started online, made mini comics, went to comic conventions with them, met people my own age doing those books who made me feel better. Like we all kind of boosted each other up. Just sort of slow and steady. And online is free.
It is.
Yeah, I went the traditional route of querying agents and also submitting to publishers with my first, finished graphic novel, and got no traction. I got some traction, but not meaningful traction. And got to a point where I'm like, well, is anybody gonna like this? So I put it online for free, and then was subsequently contacted by publishers and stuff. You got to show your work, basically. You got to get it out there, and things may or may not happen.
I like this small press route where you do shows like this. I've seen a lot of artists kind of pop up where you read their mini comic, and it's incredible from the get-go, and you know that they have a huge trajectory. When I started out, one of those authors I remember I was doing an interview, and they were asking me who I was excited about, and I said, oh, there's this comic by this woman named Lisa Hannawalt. And now she's like, the BoJack Horseman. Yeah, she is a full institution. I guess it's a bit hokey and like old-fashioned, but your little book that you print 60 copies of, it's gonna have wings, and people will pick up on that.
I also think, just briefly, like and this is another thing I've learned from my students, a lot of people idealize publishing a book. It will not, fix your life. It's not going to give you this endless boost of confidence. And publishing is a weird, complex world, and it doesn't always go perfectly. And sometimes they put no money behind your book, and you publish a book, and you think it's going to be amazing, and then it's not amazing. So don't put all of your hope and stock into publishing. Put it into instead making work that you're proud of. I think that's much more important.
I'm wondering if you have a process for getting your ideas for your stories.
So like I'm a potter and I go to the hardware store and ideas just come to me. So that's the kind of thing I'm wondering.
It's nice that you have a reliable method.
Yeah.
That's good.
I think traveling always helps me. Like, without fail, I go to a different country or a different place, and I'm like, oh damn, gotta draw.
If all your daily responsibilities and anxieties are gone for whatever reason, you can free the brain up, for sure. I got the idea for my picture book while I was getting a massage. It was great. I was like, everything was working there.
Did you say, like, leave me alone?
No, I just kept it quiet, like a little jewel in my heart until I got home and realized it was gonna work. But I've gotten so many massages since then. I'm gonna keep getting massages just in case.
Long, quiet showers. Rest your head against the cool porcelain. Feel the ideas coming.
I'm a bad girl myself.
I think there's a common theme here where, and I relate to all this, where it's like, it's something that tricks you into not falling into the rigid mechanisms of your brain. You kind of, I mean, I was going to say, and this sounds terrible, but I don't drink often at all, but these days, every time I get drunk, I'm like, I have great inspiration. No, I mean, like, I'm bouncing off, and I don't know why. I'm like,
Children, this is not advice.
I'm so sorry for But anyways, what we're saying is like, you kind of loosen up, and showering, taking a run, like just jogging is really good for creativity. You just kind
Get out of yourself.
Exactly.
You know what's bad for creativity?
What? Oh, yeah, cancel that. Kill it. Destroy it.
Don't
Doesn't
carry
work.
it around like a little talisman and put it in front of you at panels.
Don't put it under your bed. That's not where it's under your pillow. It's not where it lives.
Yeah. Okay, so that's all the time we have, unfortunately. So these are all amazing authors. They're all here at the show at the following table, so you should obviously go there and purchase their work. And thank you all so much. Thanks for being here.